A wild bobcat who recently slipped into a Florida chicken coop ended up being the one who needed saving. The call came from a concerned chicken owner who had found a feline that didn't look well trapped in his coop. Skeletal and shaking, the poor bobcat had been stuck there for hours, maybe even longer, surrounded by prey he was too weak to hunt. This is the story of an impossible choice, an unlikely rescue, and a transformation that stunned even the most seasoned wildlife experts. Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The silence was the first thing that set Arthur Peterson on edge. At 78, his life was governed by a symphony of familiar sounds. The creak of the floorboards in his old farmhouse, the rustle of the wind through the longleaf pines, and, most reliably, the boisterous morning chatter of his 52 hens. But on this particular November morning, a thick, unnerving quiet hung over the property, a silence as heavy and damp as the Florida humidity. Arthur pushed himself up from the worn floral armchair where his wife, Eleanor, used to sit. He grabbed his old hickory walking stick from its place by the door, its smooth, dark wood a comforting presence in his hand. Every morning for the past decade, since Eleanor had passed, he had followed the same ritual. Coffee on the porch, followed by a walk to the chicken coop to let the girls out. It was a simple routine, but it was his. It was his connection to her, to the life they had built on this small patch of land near Cocoa. As he stepped onto the porch, the silence pressed in. No clucking, no indignant squawks, just the low hum of cicadas waking in the distant cypress trees. A cold knot of dread tightened in his stomach. He thought of raccoons, clever and vicious, or a brazen fox. He picked up his pace, the tip of his cane sinking into the soft, sandy soil. The chicken coop, a sturdy structure he and Eleanor had built with their own hands 30 years ago, stood ahead. The wire mesh of the run gleamed faintly in the hazy morning light. As he drew closer, he saw that the main door, which he always latched with a heavy-duty carabiner, was slightly ajar. His heart hammered against his ribs. He'd been careless. Old age was making him forgetful, and now his hens, Eleanor's prize-winning buff Orpingtons, had likely paid the price. He braced himself for a scene of carnage, his mind painting a grim picture of feathers and blood. He pushed the door open, the hinges groaning in the quiet. The smell of pine shavings, feed, and chicken manure filled his nostrils, but it was overlaid with something else, a wild, musky scent of sickness and fear. His hens were not scattered and lifeless as he'd feared. They were huddled together in the far corner of the coop, pressed against the wall in a silent, feathered mob. Their heads were down, their beady eyes wide with a terror so profound it had stolen their voices. Arthur's gaze followed theirs, scanning the dim interior until it landed on a shape huddled in the opposite corner, near the nesting boxes. It was a cat, but not like any cat he had ever seen. It was a gaunt, skeletal creature, its fur a ragged patchwork of gray and raw, pink skin. It looked like a ghost, a moth-eaten specter of an animal that had crawled into his coop to die. It was so emaciated that its bones jutted out at sharp, unnatural angles. Its face was a mask of misery, its eyes crusted nearly shut with the scabby residue of severe mange. Arthur's first instinct was fury. A predator. It had gotten in, and while it hadn't killed any of his birds yet, it was only a matter of time. He raised his walking stick, his knuckles white. "Get out of here, you devil," he rasped, his voice hoarse. The creature flinched at the sound, letting out a wheezing hiss that ended in a rattling cough. It tried to stand, to summon some vestige of defiance, but its legs trembled and gave way. It collapsed back onto the hay-strewn floor with a soft, defeated sigh. And that was when Arthur saw it. That was the moment that shocked him, that stopped the anger cold in his chest and replaced it with a sudden, aching wave of pity. The animal hadn't touched a single chicken. The feed trough was full. The water dispenser was untouched. The hens, though terrified, were all accounted for and unharmed. This predator, this wild cat, was so weak, so utterly broken, that it couldn't even muster the strength to kill a chicken that was trapped in a box with it. It had likely slipped in through the door he'd forgotten to latch, seeking not a meal, but a final, quiet refuge from its suffering. He lowered his cane, the anger draining out of him, replaced by a profound sadness. He could see now, despite its wretched condition, the faint tufts of fur on its ears and the short, stubby tail. It was a bobcat, a magnificent wild creature of the Florida scrub, reduced to this pathetic state. He saw not a monster, but a victim. Eleanor's voice echoed in his memory, as clear as if she were standing right beside him. Everything deserves a little bit of kindness, Art, especially the things that can't ask for it. She had been the one with the soft heart for strays, for injured birds, for anything small and hurting. He had been the pragmatist, the farmer who understood the harsh realities of nature. But looking at the dying bobcat, he felt Eleanor's compassion welling up inside him. He backed slowly out of the coop, closing the door gently behind him. The chickens remained silent. He walked back to the house, his mind racing. He couldn't just leave it in there to die. He couldn't bring himself to put it out of its misery either. Its spirit, however faint, was still flickering. Inside, he found the old phone book and flipped through the well-worn pages until he found the number he was looking for. Wild Florida Rescue. He'd seen their truck in town once or twice. With a trembling finger, he dialed the number. A calm, professional voice answered on the second ring. Wild Florida Rescue, this is Sarah. Arthur cleared his throat. My name is Arthur Peterson. I have a situation out here at my farm. I've got a wild cat trapped in my chicken coop. Okay, Mr. Peterson. Can you describe the animal for me? Is it a bobcat? Sarah's voice was even, reassuring. I think so, Arthur said, but it's in a terrible state. It's real sick. Skin and bones. Got some kind of mange, I think. It's not looking well at all. He paused, then added the part that still bewildered him. The strange thing is, my chickens are all fine. It hasn't touched a one of them. It just lies there. There was a moment of silence on the other end of the line. That's very unusual, Sarah said, a note of concern in her voice. It sounds like the animal is in critical condition. Can you give me your address? I'll head out there right away. An hour later, a white van with the WFR logo pulled up the long, dusty driveway. A woman in her late 30s with a kind face and a practical, no-nonsense air stepped out. It was Sarah. Mr. Peterson? She asked, extending a hand. I'm Sarah Jenkins. Arthur shook her hand. Thanks for coming so quick. It's still in there. He led her to the coop, explaining again what he had found. Sarah listened intently, her brow furrowed with concentration. She carried a large carrier, a thick blanket, and a catch pole. It's best if you stay back here, sir, she said gently as they reached the coop door. She's going to be terrified, and even in this state, a wild animal can be unpredictable. Arthur nodded and stood back, his heart pounding with a strange mix of anxiety and hope. Sarah moved with a quiet efficiency that spoke of years of experience. She opened the coop door just enough to slip inside, then closed it behind her. For a few long minutes, Arthur could only hear muffled sounds from within. Sarah's soft, soothing voice, a faint rustle of hay, and then a single, weak, guttural hiss from the bobcat. He pictured the scene, the terrified, sick animal, and the calm woman trying to help it. He gripped his cane, whispering a small prayer for both of them. Finally, the door opened, and Sarah emerged, carrying the blanket-wrapped form of the bobcat. She was so small, so light. It was shocking to see her up close, even swaddled in the thick fabric. A small, fur-tufted ear twitched, the only sign of the life that still clung to her. "You were right, Mr. Peterson," Sarah said, her voice low and somber as she carefully placed the animal in the carrier. "She's a female bobcat, and she's in about the worst shape I've ever seen one in and still be alive. She's suffering from extreme malnutrition and a severe case of sarcoptic mange. It's so bad around her face, I'm sure she can barely see. That's probably why she wandered in here. She was blind, starving, and just looking for a safe place." Sarah looked at Arthur, her eyes full of a deep, weary empathy. "You said no chickens were harmed?" "Not a feather out of place," Arthur confirmed, still marveling at it. "She was too weak to hunt," Sarah surmised. "Too sick to even try. Honestly, finding her in your coop probably saved her life. Another day or two out there and she would have been gone." She secured the latch on the carrier. "Thank you for calling us. Most people in your position would have reached for a shotgun first." The words struck a chord deep within Arthur. He had almost reached for his cane as a weapon. The thought now filled him with a profound sense of shame. He looked at the pathetic creature in the crate, a life hanging by a thread, and felt an unexpected surge of responsibility. Will she make it?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly. Sarah gave him a small, sad smile. "Her odds aren't great, but I've learned not to underestimate the will to live. She's got some fight in her, I can tell. We'll get her back to the center, get some fluids and nutrients in her, and start treating the mange. It's going to be a long road." She paused, then added, "I can call you with an update if you'd like." "Yes," Arthur said, more quickly than he'd intended. "Yes, I'd like that very much." He watched the van drive away, leaving a plume of dust in its wake. The farm felt quiet again, but it was a different kind of quiet now. It was a watchful, hopeful silence. He let the chickens out, and they clucked and scratched in the dirt as if nothing had happened, their short memories a blessing. But Arthur couldn't forget the image of the ghostly bobcat, a wild spirit brought to its knees. For the next week, Arthur's days were marked by a new routine. He would do his chores, tend the garden, and then sit by the phone, waiting. Sarah was true to her word. She called every other day. The first call was grim. The bobcat, who the staff had started calling Hope, was not responding well. She was too weak to eat on her own and had to be syringe-fed a high-calorie supplement. Lab work confirmed she was anemic and dehydrated, but mercifully, there were no signs of irreversible organ damage. "She's a fighter, though," Sarah had said. "She hissed at me this morning." It's a good sign. Arthur held on to that little detail. A hiss. It was a spark of wildness, a refusal to give up. He started thinking of her as Hope, too. During the second week, there was a breakthrough. Hope had started eating solid food on her own, small pieces of prepared meat left in her enclosure. Her mange was being treated with medication, a slow, painstaking process. Arthur found himself becoming more and more invested. He drove into town and bought a 50-pound bag of high-quality cat food and dropped it off at the rescue center's donation bin, leaving it anonymously. He didn't want any thanks. He just wanted to help. By the third week, Sarah's voice on the phone was audibly brighter. "You wouldn't recognize her, Arthur. The scabs are starting to fall off, and there's the finest, softest layer of new fur coming in underneath. It's still patchy, but it's there." And her eyes, they're clearing up. They're this beautiful, fierce amber color. Arthur felt a smile spread across his face, the first genuine one in a long time. He could picture it, the life returning to her, the ghost shedding its shroud. He started visiting. At first, he just stood outside the chain-link fence of the recovery enclosures, watching from a distance. He saw Hope in her spacious pen, which was filled with logs and branches to mimic her natural environment. She was still painfully thin, but she moved with a growing confidence. She was no longer the pathetic heap he had found in his coop. She was starting to look like a bobcat again. One afternoon, Sarah found him there. "She knows you, I think," she said softly, standing beside him. "She can't," Arthur scoffed. "She was half blind when I found her." "Animals know more than we give them credit for," Sarah replied. "They know a scent. They know a presence. She's calmer when you're here." Hope was sitting on top of a large log, grooming a patch of new fur on her leg. She paused and looked toward them, her amber eyes sharp and intelligent. She didn't hiss or growl. She just watched, a silent acknowledgement passing between the old man and the wild cat. In that moment, Arthur felt a connection so deep it startled him. They were two survivors, each in their own way, finding a reason to keep going. The weeks turned into 2 months. Hope's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. Her coat grew in thick and beautiful, a tawny brown dappled with the dark spots and stripes that had been completely erased by the mange. She gained weight, her skeletal frame filling out with sleek, powerful muscle. She was now half the size of a healthy bobcat no longer, but the picture of one. She would pace her enclosure, her movements fluid and predatory, her gaze fixed on the world outside the fence. The wild was calling her back. The day finally came when Sarah called with the news Arthur had been both hoping for and dreading. "She's ready, Arthur." The vet gave her a clean bill of health. "She's strong. She's hunting the live prey we introduced for practice, and she's more than ready to be wild again. We're planning her release for Saturday." A lump formed in Arthur's throat. That's wonderful news, Sarah. We're taking her to a large state preserve, far from any chicken coops," Sarah said with a gentle laugh. "I was wondering if you'd like to be there." Arthur's heart swelled. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." On Saturday morning, Arthur drove to the designated spot deep within the Tosohatchee Wildlife Management Area. The air was crisp and smelled of pine and damp earth. Sarah was there with the WFR van and another volunteer. The carrier holding Hope was in the back. They carried it to a clearing overlooking a vast expanse of palmetto scrub and wetlands. This was her world. This was where she belonged. "Are you ready to do the honors, Arthur?" Sarah asked, gesturing toward the latch on the carrier door. Arthur's hands trembled as he approached. He knelt down, his old knees protesting, and looked through the mesh. Hope was crouched inside, tense and alert, her muscles coiled like a spring. Her amber eyes met his, and for a fleeting second, he saw not a wild animal, but a kindred spirit who had shared a small, significant part of his life. "Go on now, girl," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Go be free." He lifted the latch and pulled the door open. For a moment, nothing happened. Hope remained crouched, peering out at the vast green world before her. Then, with a gathering of her powerful hind legs, she exploded from the crate. She didn't bolt in a panic. She burst forth with a confident, fluid grace, landing silently on the soft earth. She paused for a single, breathtaking second, her head held high, her ears swiveling to take in the sounds of her reclaimed home. She turned her head and looked back, her amber eyes locking with Arthur's one last time. It wasn't a look of gratitude or even recognition, but one of pure, untamed wildness. Then, with a flick of her short tail, she bounded into the undergrowth and vanished, becoming one with the landscape as if she had never been gone. Tears welled in Arthur's eyes, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of joy, of awe, of a profound sense of rightness. Sarah placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "She's home, Arthur. You did that. You gave her that." Driving back to the farm, Arthur felt a lightness in his chest he hadn't felt in years. The world seemed brighter, more vibrant. When he got home, he walked out to the chicken coop. The hens clucked a greeting, their little world orderly and peaceful. He secured the carabiner on the door, checking it twice out of habit, but the fear was gone. He looked out past the coop, toward the dense line of woods that bordered his property. He knew Hope was not out there. She was miles and miles away, in a place safer and wilder. But he also knew that a part of her would always be here, in this quiet corner of his farm. She had wandered in as a specter of death and had, in the end, brought him a renewed sense of life. The old farmer, who had set out one morning expecting to find a killer, had instead found a purpose and a profound, unexpected grace in the heart of the wild. And that had shocked him more than anything.